what time it is?
No, Kat, what time is it?
It's sugaring time! How lucky are we to live in Vermont, where the climate and the changes in the seasons provide the perfect conditions for maple sugaring.
You're right. It's still chilly at night, but the sun is warming up the days. And here at the farm and all through New England, the sugar maple trees are starting to let their sap flow. And what we're doing is collecting that sap and making it into maple syrup.
Have you ever visited a sugar house or made maple syrup or maybe even collected sap before? What's your favorite way to enjoy maple syrup?
My favorite way to eat maple syrup is to have it on waffles or pancakes or French toast.
Let's go on a journey from maple sap to maple syrup. Explore what makes Vermont such a perfect place for maple sugaring, and talk about some of the technology that sugar makers use along the way. Maple sap comes from the maple tree, most often from sugar maples.
But they all look the same to me. I mean, I know what a maple leaf looks like, but most of the trees don't have their leaves right now. So how are we going to tell what a sugar maple looks like?
Trees give us many clues besides just what their leaves look like. For example, we can take a look at the tree's bark. Younger sugar maples have bark like this one, stone gray and smooth, while older sugar maples have brown, thick, vertical pieces of bark. Another clue that we can use when figuring out what type of tree we're looking at is how its branches grow. Some trees' branches grow out to the side and then have another branch grow to the opposite side, and we call that opposite branching. Here's an example of opposite branching on a very, very young sugar maple. Do you see how one little branch comes out this way and the other one comes out directly across from it? Or if we move down to the next set, do you see how they grow perfectly opposite of one another? Now, some trees' branches grow asymmetrically, which is a bit different than opposite branching. That means one branch might grow out of one side, while another branch might grow out down here, and another branch might grow out way up here. We call this alternate branching. Also, when there's not so much snow on the ground, if you were to look around the base of the tree, you could find its seeds. And I bet a lot of you are probably familiar with the maple seeds that gently glide from the sky like little helicopters.
So we're here down at Shelburne Farms, down next to our sugar house, and we have identified a sugar maple tree. Once you've identified your sugar maple tree, the next thing you want to do is make sure that it's big enough to withstand having a bucket hanging off of it, number one, and number two, that we can pull sap from it without damaging the tree. So next step I'm going to do is measure our tree, and we want it to be 38 inches around. So that's the circumference of the tree. And we are right there, just shy of 38 inches. This is a perfect tree to tap.
Tapping a tree does leave a small scar under the bark, and this is an area of the tree where sap and nutrients cannot flow. So Jed is using this scar tool to represent where scarring may exist under the bark so that he knows where it is safe to tap this tree. This will ensure that the tree can continue to get the nutrients it needs to stay healthy for a long time.
So now that we've figured out that this tree is big enough and we found its old tap holes and figured out where a safe spot is to tap, to put in our new tap, now I've got to get my drill bit ready.
Before we drill, let's take a closer look at the inside of this tree. Here we have a massive tree cookie, and by that I mean it's a cross section of a sugar maple tree trunk. And it's really cool because you'll notice there's different colors throughout the trunk, and they're all representing different parts of the tree. And we're going to learn a little song that you can sing to help you remember the parts of the maple tree. So in the center here, you see some darker wood, and that's called the heartwood. And the heartwood is like the backbone of the tree. It's what's going to keep it sturdy so it can stand tall and strong. And the song that goes with the heartwood is, we're big, we're strong, we hold up the tree. We're big, we're strong, we hold up the tree. Okay, now this lighter layer that you see going around the tree cookie here is called the sapwood. And that's the area of the tree where the sap, the maple sap, is going to be flowing up and down the tree. So the part of the song to help you remember the sapwood is sap flowing up, sap flowing down, sap flowing up, sap flowing down. And on the outer part of the tree, you're probably familiar with this one, we've got the bark. And the bark helps protect the tree. So a way you're gonna remember that, the part of the song goes, rough, 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 we protect the tree. Rough, 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 we protect the tree. So now, let's put them all together and see how it sounds.
We're big, we're strong, we
Sap
hold up
flowing
the
up,
tree.
sap flowing
We're big,
down.
we're
Sap
strong,
flowing up,
we hold up the
sap flowing
tree.
down.
We're
Sap
big,
flowing
we're
up,
strong,
sap
we hold
flowing
up
down.
the tree.
All right, now that we've taken an inside look at the sapwood, which is where the nutrients and sap flow up and down the tree, we're ready to drill a hole for our sugaring tap.
So I'm gonna start going here. You'll see it's gonna stop on the blue tape at the edge of the bark, and this is how far our tap's gonna go into the tree.
Here, Jed uses a power drill, which is another example of a technology that helps the sugar maker. Power drills are quite a bit faster and more efficient than using hand drills, especially when you're tapping lots of sugar maples.
So we've made our tap hole, and now we've got our tap. I like to think of this as a shark tap because it has the fin on the top, and you actually hook the bucket on this side and it holds it on there, and the sap flows out this little canal right here. So I'm gonna put this right in here, and then take my little handy hammer and tap it in. So our tap is in. If it was a little warmer out right now, you might see some sap starting to drip out of the canal, and this is when we would either put our hand underneath it to taste some of the sap, or we hang the bucket right up. So our last step is to put a hat on our bucket. Why do you think our buckets have hats? It's actually to keep more water from snow or rain going into our bucket, and it also, if some bark falls in, it just keeps our sap a little bit cleaner.
Welcome to our sugar bush here at Shelburne Farms. And a sugar bush is a collection of sugar maple trees in one area that are used for sugar making or for making maple syrup. Now I'm looking all around and noticing there is not a single bucket hanging from a tree. But what I do notice is that there's lots and lots and lots, as far as the eye can see, of plastic tubing like what you see right behind me. This tubing is called a sap line, and the trees are tapped just like we tapped earlier, but instead of hanging a bucket, the tap is connected to these sap lines, and the sap can flow through these lines from tree to tree all the way down the hill to a huge collection tank. Can you think about why sugar makers would choose to use sap lines in their sugar making operation rather than buckets? Well, picture this. We tap 2,500 sugar maple trees here at Shelburne Farms. That's a lot of buckets. That's over 2,000 buckets. Can you imagine trudging up and down these hills, having to collect heavy buckets full of sap? Having a sap line reduces the amount of work it takes to collect that sap, to physically collect it and bring it to the sugar house. So that is an example of technology in the sugar bush. Well, we tapped our maple tree with our buckets. We checked out the sap lines in the Shelburne Farms sugar bush. Now we have to wait. We have to wait for that moment where the nights are below 20 degrees and the days are above 40 degrees, because those are the conditions we need for the sap to really start pumping through that tree. And then we'll get to turn that sap into maple syrup.